And we are live. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to another session of WunderGraph AMA, a session where you can ask us anything. So, we did this about 2 weeks ago, and the feedback was awesome. We had a bunch of viewers, we had a bunch of really good questions, and we were going to do it bi weekly, but the community asked if we can do it weekly. And so, we're back. We're going to be doing this weekly, answering questions that we got in the community from the previous week, as well as any questions that we get from alive. So, welcome back. I'm joined by Jens, the AST writer. What's up, Jens?
Hi, Markdown expert.
Yeah, I am a Markdown expert because I don't code anymore. I just write blog posts in Markdown, so I've become kind of an expert. Okay, cool. So this episode's jam-packed. We have a lot of stuff we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about the Universal ORM, open previews. We're going to talk about business stuff, what it's like being a founder with kids, some Twitter drama that we had earlier this week, as well as how did WunderGraph start and where do we see WunderGraph in the next 5 years. So you might see me not paying attention. That's just me promoting this on Twitter and just kind of shouting it around since my guest here, Jens, is going to be answering most of the questions. So let's get right into it. Jens, a lot of people hate the word ORM. They also hate the word microservices and monolith. Yet in your blog, you had all three. What is the universal ORM and how is it going to change the world for us?
I don't think everybody hates ORMs. It's just, I don't know, sometimes people want control over how they interact with the database. Sometimes people want to have, really go to the fine-grained nitty details of how they write queries and stuff. But other times you really just want to get the job done. And I think tools like Prisma, Drizzle, and others, they really make your life a lot easier interacting with your database. And I think the word kind of makes sense to use ORM for your APIs as well. The WunderGraph RM, however, is differently in that we don't have a single data source. Most of the time when you use an ORM, it really just talks to one thing, like your SQLite database or something, or Postgres or MongoDB, whatever. With the WunderGraph ORM, what it really does is it allows you to talk to all your data sources as if they were one. And I think that's super interesting. It changes completely the way you build systems, you integrate APIs, especially in the backend for front-end setup. And what the ORM really allows you to do is say, I want to interact with the SOAP API, with some REST APIs, with GraphQL APIs, with some microservices. And you can hide all of them under one single umbrella, and you have one single unified interface to talk to them. That was possible before with WunderGraph. You could just use GraphQL. The point is, if you look at the history of GraphQL, what we wanted to solve in the very beginning is, hey, guy from Greece and music. Okay, I don't know about that. But if you look at the beginning of WunderGraph, the first goal or the first problem we wanted to solve is, let's make it possible to talk GraphQL to all your services. So I built the WunderGraph engine. We built the WunderGraph SDK. You can introspect data sources. You can talk GraphQL to them. That was great until people started saying, okay, I want to add some customization. So we added TypeScript operations. So now at that point, what you could do is not just have GraphQL operations against your virtual graph, but you could also have TypeScript operations. In the TypeScript operations, we had injected a type-safe client to call other operations. So if you define a GraphQL operation, you can call it from a TypeScript operation. Very simple, straightforward. You can manipulate the data and then map it and do whatever you want. The problem is that's one unnecessary step, and we wanted to make it even simpler. And with the WunderGraph ORM, you can now write type-safe operations against the virtual graph just using TypeScript. So in theory, you don't need to learn GraphQL anymore to use WunderGraph. You don't need to understand GraphQL if you want to interact with your virtual graph, all you do is you add your API dependencies, and then you can have the GraphQL ORM and write operations, queries, mutations, subscriptions against the virtual graph. And I think it just makes API integrations so much easier.
Super cool. And so this universal ORM, is it ready to use? Can users start interacting with it today?
Yeah, like we add a feature flag to make it experimental, just because we thought that maybe some of our enterprise customers don't want to run the ORM in production because we might not exactly know all the edge cases. Like maybe, I don't know, it increases the amount of memory your application uses, or it increases startup time in serverless environments. So we don't know all these details. So we wanted to say, okay, add the feature flag to enable it if you want to use it. And if you don't care, just don't enable the feature flag and you're fine. So yeah, it's behind the feature flag, but ready to use. Please join the Discord, give us feedback. We would love to learn more about how you're using it. And then if you find any edge cases, that will be nice.
Awesome. And I think it's important to note how this was built. So the beauty of WunderGraph is it's open source, and this was actually an open source contribution, right, Jens?
Yeah, so it's built by Tim Kendall, a really great guy. We met, I don't know how, it's a while ago. And we actually pay him to spend time on open source. So we paid him a little bit. And yeah, this project was ongoing for a couple of months. It was very interesting how it came together because very early on, Tim was like, yeah, this is going to take like 4 to 8 weeks. And we're like, okay, cool, let's go. And then, I don't know, 3 months later, we still didn't have it because it's just more complex than we thought. But Tim didn't give up, and he just really enjoyed working on this. He fell so in love with this tool, and he just wanted to push it through. And then, yeah, I'm so happy. Like I think a week ago, we finally made it work, merged it in. It seems like it's not breaking anything, so everything's good. We made sure that it doesn't like increase the compile time or anything like too much. We have some caching so that we don't regenerate the ORM all the time. But yeah, things look good, and I think it was amazing to show that people can make a little side hustle with open source contributions. And I think we found Tim because we were, I don't know, I think he had another open source project. I think it was called TS-SQL that solved a similar problem, but for SQL. And I thought, okay, this guy has the right kind of knowledge. So we contacted him, and yeah, he was interested for a little side gig. And it's a great collaboration. Also, what it showed is you can build a feature like the ORM with almost no collaboration. Like we almost had no calls with him. It was really just a giant pull requests and comments going back and forth. And it was great. Like, you know, some people, they are so good at communicating, you don't need to join meetings. You can just write an RFC, agree on the RFC. It took a while to bring this together, but once we figured the RFC, then the rest was really just implementation. And yeah, it came out very well.
Cool. And Leo has a question. So will the ORM call any overhead to the compiled operation compared to the GraphQL one?
Yes. So when you write a GraphQL operation in the traditional way, like a GraphQL file, what happens is we take the file at dev time or compile time. We take the file and turn it into a Golang endpoint. So this endpoint will be crazy fast, like almost zero overhead. If you use the ORM, what happens is a request comes into the Golang gateway. The Golang gateway makes a sub request to a TypeScript operation. This TypeScript operation runs in the Fastify server in the sidecar. And this Fastify server will then make requests through the ORM. So the ORM, again, will make a GraphQL request or more to the gateway. We have an internal API endpoint. This has a cache. So that means the first request will be a tiny bit slower, but subsequent requests of the ORM will be cached. But still, the request always goes gateway, Fastify, and then through the ORM back to the gateway, and then all the way back to the client. So it has overhead over a traditional GraphQL operation. But keep in mind that the Go server, it almost adds no overhead in this instance, because it really just routes the traffic to the Fastify server, and Fastify is pretty damn fast. So yeah, but it has overhead.
Cool. Thank you, Leo, for the question. So next up on our topic list is somebody asked a question about open previews, and it's super interesting because we actually released that today. So I'm going to post a link so you guys can check it out. But Jens, explain to me, what is open previews? How we
Who's that somebody? Is it staged?
No. Actually, somebody asked us about open previews because we kind of hinted back into the Discord. I'll have to find the name, but it was just weird timing. So they asked about open previews. So talk to me about open previews.
Okay. So we're using Vercel for a while, and we're already over 10 users. And we're super afraid that at some point we will run into enterprise territory. And we don't really feel enterprisey because we have a blog, which is a static site. And we have our cloud dashboard that has, I don't know, maybe at max a couple hundred concurrent users, maximum really. And so we don't feel like an enterprise user in terms of website. But when you deploy websites, we really like the idea of open previews. Or of previews. We really like the idea of being able to comment on something. And then there's also systems outside Vercel, like SST from Dux and J. We really like the two, and they don't have preview comments because they are not Vercel or Netlify. And so we had the idea to make preview comments accessible to everybody. And the more we thought about it, the more we actually realized we don't just want to make preview comments open source and accessible to everybody. We also want to do two other things. One is we want to dog food WunderGraph a lot more. So we want to use it ourselves to build real products and to show how you can build something with WunderGraph. And the second point is we realize we can actually do a lot better than Vercel, because if you make a preview comment on a Vercel preview, what it does is it creates some data and puts that data with the rendering and stuff on the preview. But this data is within Vercel. And then if you actually want to change that, so let's say you comment on the hero text of a website. The comment is somewhere in the Vercel data store. And if you look at the code, if you look at the pull request by itself, the comment will not be there. And so our idea was, if we can build open previews using the GitHub API, what would be possible is we don't just have the comments like on GitHub. So it wouldn't just be, I don't want to say like open source because GitHub is still a vendor, but you would own your comments. And the second thing is we can actually figure out what line of code is affecting the hero text. And so we can attach the preview comment to the line of code. And we can use the GitHub APIs to actually create a pull request review. So that means you don't have to have this split between pull request review on the one side and Vercel preview comments on the other side. It is really just one thing. And we can figure out, okay, here's the hero text. This was changed in the pull request. We attach a preview comment to that and then make a pull request review. And so the developer who should change the hero text, they will see the comment on the hero text in the pull request. And I think that's a much better developer experience. So yeah, it's going to be open source. It's going to use WunderGraph, obviously, because we want to dog food, but WunderGraph is open source as well. And you will be able to self-host that, and you can just use the free WunderGraph Cloud version, so you don't have to pay anything. And that's a win-win situation. We get cloud users, we get free previews, and yeah, we're building an open source community around a better preview comments experience.
I love that. And if you guys can see the link, so it's open today. So sign up for the waitlist. The waitlist is filling up. We've promoted across Reddit, and so far the traction has been incredible on it. So I'm super excited about this. And the landing page is beautiful. So shout out to Yoko for that one. And then, yes, Decoder, I got a haircut. I didn't want a haircut. He just didn't speak English. I wanted a trim, but that's a whole nother episode. But the next thing we have is related to business and startups. So this is probably one of the most interesting things that I've experienced. And I think Jens does an excellent job at this. And I think startups in general should do it like this. Whenever I hear a startup doing a 1-year plan or a 6-month plan, I think it's ridiculous. And I don't think that's how you should do your increments in planning. So Jens, talk to me about how WunderGraph does these like 3-month increments and how we plan the roadmap and how we take in the data and we're able to adjust the roadmap from customer feedback, from user feedback, and how every 3 months when we meet in person, the roadmap changes and some things are different, some things are the same, and how we do it as a team.
Yeah, I think it's actually simple and obvious. Like, you always want to have a roadmap that is both short-term and long-term, in the sense that it is okay to have a 1-year plan. The only thing you have to acknowledge is, because a 1-year plan gives your team direction. Like, everybody knows, okay, that's the North Star. The only thing you need to acknowledge is we will never actually go there. Because 2 weeks from now, a customer will sign a big contract and that will pull us into some other direction. And yeah, I don't know if we're doing anything magic, but every couple of weeks, we take in all the data we have. We rethink our current process, and I don't know. We just the way I like to think is I like to use money for voting. So especially in our stage, I'd like to find someone who puts money on something, and that steers us into the business direction. Because worst thing you can do is you build. People promise you to be a customer. If you could only build that one feature, it will probably never happen. Ideal case, you have someone who's ready to pay for something that doesn't even exist, or that you have it on your roadmap and they are interested in buying it, even though it doesn't yet exist. So that helps you make decisions. And yeah, we are in the luxury position where I would say our user base, through open source, through all the Slack connects we have, it is now so big that we don't have to guess anymore where to put our eggs. It's really, well, I think we've built a well-oiled machine in figuring out where to put our priorities. And we, for example, when you sign up with WunderGraph Cloud, you get immediately invited to our Slack connects. So we build Slack connects. We talk to people. We have the Discord with over 800-900 people where we get feedback. We have the GitHub. We have our community. All of these together give us data points, and then we have paying customers. all of this together, it gives us data points where to focus on. And yeah, every now and then we make some little bets, but I would say in the last 8 months, in the last 8 weeks, it really changed into the direction of we just need to follow the feedback, like listen, ask questions, and yeah, I think it's going well. You can see this on NPM. Downloads are going well. We're doing something right, and yeah, this company is on a good trajectory.
Love that. I think it's super important that you need to talk to your users. And this is YC advice that you'll see here everywhere is talk to your users and do things that don't scale. So the Discord, the Slack Connect, these are things that don't scale, but they work. And I think that you cannot guarantee anyone. Yeah, Scott said it perfectly. You can't grant everyone feature requests. And the easiest way to actually grant the feature request is with a monetary commitment. So if they put down the money, then you can guarantee it because this is a real business use case. So I love that. And I want to give a quick shout out to Jens because I think Jens does a great job at guiding the roadmap the way it needs to be based on data, user feedback, as well as customer data. So great job, Jens. Remember when you do performance evaluations to think of me.
Yeah. Do I get a raise?
I don't know. We'll figure it out. All right. The next one is a little bit of a lighthearted topic. So if you guys are on Twitter, you might have seen we've had a little bit of drama. And this is a very weird topic because people will say that drama and hot takes don't work. And we made the mistake. We did a hot take. We apologize. Jens did an excellent apology. But good content, in my opinion, wins 10% of the time. 90% of the time, it doesn't. So Jens, talk to me about Twitter and hot takes and how we can write good content about GraphQL and it gets 10 eyeballs, but we write some stupid content where we make a mistake and we criticize someone who's actually a good friend of ours and it explodes. Talk to me about that.
So I personally hate social media, but some time back I acknowledged that if you want to be a founder in DevTool space, you just have to be on social media. You have to interact. You have to be on Twitter. You have to build a following. If you compare two companies, one have a founder who's very silent, who hides behind their team, who maybe has a dev advocate who sometimes posts a tweet or a video or a blog post, they will simply not be as successful as WunderGraph because I write blog posts all the time. I'm active on Twitter, although I don't like it. And I think you just when we just released the ORM, I post something on Twitter. I don't have a huge following, but something like 900 something it's now. We get a lot of reactions. We get a lot of eyeballs. Like just the ORM post on Twitter, I did like 4,000 or 5,000 impressions, lots of retweets, likes, blah, blah, blah. That's just way better than you tweet and you get nothing. And the point is, what I learned, and I really don't like it, but what I learned from Twitter or how Twitter taught me to interact with it is the more controversial, the more responses you get. If you just post nice, friendly threads about GraphQL internals, nobody really cares. The problem is last week I took it just way too far, and this was completely off. And I wrote an apology to Theo, and I think everything is fine. We had a DM chat. I know that tweet wasn't okay. At the same time, just 2 days ago, Stefan, you sent me a message from Paul Graham, how he kind of suggests that, I don't know, maybe you can bring up the tweet, but he somehow suggests that if you want to build a following, you need to shitpost. It's more or less what he said. And I really don't like it. I would prefer if I can just focus on stuff like, I want to actually write a book on how to build a GraphQL gateway, because it took me, I don't know, 5 years to build one. And there's like, nobody has a clue how complex it is. And then I rewrote the compiler like 4 times because at the beginning I didn't get the design right. And there's so many pitfalls you can run into. So I want to create content around that. I really hope it will work and people will appreciate it and they will interact it, so I don't have to shitpost. But yeah, as I said, like Theo, it wasn't meant like that. It was a bad post, and yeah, I hope we can get along in the future. And yeah, that's about it.
And I've linked the tweet about Paul Graham in the comments below. I think it's super important to note that, yeah, shit takes and, like these posts and memeing, it works. But it's also very important. I talked to this about Dax, is providing value. And so you should definitely do an approach with both. We don't recommend doing what we did. It was a mistake. We learned from it. Jens gave it a great apology, and things are all good now in the Twitter tech world, which is very small. But I think it's very important to also provide value. Provide those blog posts, write them, do the long videos. And if you go back to our YouTube, you'll see videos way back in the day of Jens doing 35, 45-minute tutorials with WunderGraph. And they do provide value. So make sure you're providing value, but also maybe as a whole, we should think about how we should interact on Twitter. But that's probably another topic for another session. The next one is a topic that I saw on Twitter a lot, and I think it's actually super important. And there's just one comment from Scott. Let's see. People want to follow companies in attractive character. Yeah, exactly. It's building that following. And so, Scott, you're kind of nailing it on the head. Yeah, negative posts do get more engagement. And so I do like that. But on to the next topic, which I think is amazing. So for those of you that don't know me, I'm engaged. I live with my fiance and my dog. And I put in a lot of work into WunderGraph. And somehow, whenever I check my phone on Slack, Jens is on. Doesn't matter the day, doesn't matter what time. I think it's super unhealthy to the fact that he uninstalled Slack on his phone, and he still talks to me whenever I have a question on WhatsApp.
I reinstalled it.
Oh, okay, that makes sense.
Too addicted.
So Jens, being a founder is hard. I'm 26 and it's hard. How the hell are you doing it with 2 kids and a wife and a healthy balance between that? I think this is such an important topic. How do you do it? What are cutoffs you have, and how do you just make it work? Because, I mean, the most important thing to us is family, and you're killing it with your family. They love you. Everything's going great. How do you be a founder and have kids?
It's a trade-off. So I haven't done so much sport recently. I want to go swimming regularly again, but somehow, I don't know, it just doesn't work. I'm definitely addicted to WunderGraph. It doesn't cost me so much energy, to be honest, just because, I don't know, I'm doing WunderGraph now for a couple of years, and I can only recommend that yeah, if you're doing a startup and you're not so as a founder, joining a startup is a different thing. But if you're doing a startup and you're not 7,000% into what you're doing, and you don't have a big long-term vision, like we're unifying all the APIs of the world, if you don't have such a aspiring goal, it can be very hard. For me, it's not so hard. I think I have some sort of illness. I can't stop doing WunderGraph. It's just, I don't know, it became the middle of my life. It is not about money. It's about, I don't know, I just enjoy doing this. I enjoy working with the team. We assembled an amazing team of people. Yesterday, I had a day off, but a day off really means I'm just not at the computer. But it's so exciting when you have a team and they ship stuff and you see it, the Slack messages. We have a Slack channel where you get notifications when something gets deployed. I'm like, oh wow, cool, new features on cloud. Yeah, as Scott says, when you have a passion and a purpose, burnout isn't the thing. And yeah, so I don't know. Before WunderGraph, I always had either burnout or bore out. So when I was in my jobs, I always felt like, okay, somehow I'm underutilized, or I hate my boss, or something like that. In previous jobs where, when I was younger, I was a Windows system administrator. I was running Windows servers and this kind of bullshit, and did customer support, and it was horrible. And so now I don't know. I don't work at WunderGraph. I'm just WunderGraphing. And with the kids, one word. Sometimes I feel like I do something wrong because I will definitely regret not having spent more time with the kids. But I don't know. I can't stop. It's just it's pulling me in. I must do this. It's just I don't know. If
But
nobody else, I have to do it.
well,
I cannot help.
there's a great question for Leo that I'm going to put up on the board, but I think it's also important to note, Jens, your family blocker. So Jens has a blocker on his calendar that you are
And you
not
crash it
allowed.
all the time. I hate you, man.
You don't have to tell him about that. I accidentally do it because of the time difference that we have and be meetings and whatever. And yeah, I'm pretty bad at it, but it's the principle. So Jens has a family blocker, which I think any founder with family should have. And he puts it on his calendar and no one's allowed to book on it except for me, because I'm sorry, I messed up, but it happens. You want to talk a little about that? But also, Leo has a great question. So how do you manage the expectation with employees? If you're always on or the founders are always on, don't they see it as expected that they're always on? Oh, my dog's here. One second.
Yes. So this is the thing. What is my expectations for our team? And it's very simple. So we are a remote only company. The only way you can build a remote only company is built on trust. You cannot sit behind people. You cannot watch people. And most importantly, you cannot force anybody to be productive. Like I give David a task and I cannot force him to be productive or to work certain hours or anything. The only thing I can do is I can create an environment where people can excel, where everybody can give their best, and yeah, where I don't know. It's just you have to trust your people, and what expectations do I set when I'm always on? I don't know. I ask our employees. Nobody. I think nobody will be pushed or anything. We're not like that. I don't have anything else to say.
And I think it's true. And I'm going to actually bring up Nithin. So this is Nithin, one of our engineers. So Nithin says, at Leo, as someone who works with Jens, there has never been a time when you feel like you should put in the hours because someone else does. The best work-life balance in years. And you know what's crazy about Nithin is he doesn't sleep. It drives me crazy sometimes. I have to message him and be like, Nithin, go to sleep. But also, he might be playing the new, what is it? Harry Potter. But another question by Jens is, how do you foster a culture of collaboration and feedback among your team in the community of WunderGraph users and contributors? So I can talk about the community, but Jens, with the culture that we've created with collaboration and feedback, what are some things that we've done? And I think this is also a really good point that Bjorn has done for us as well.
What's the answer? I don't know.
Oh, no, I was going to ask you. So what are some things that we do to foster collaboration? So I can give my thing is we're very important on family, and we tell you to take time off. We actually encourage it, and we encourage you to come back to WunderGraph refreshed. We don't want you to come and work on WunderGraph if you're not fully 100% there and you actually enjoy it. And so for us, we have an open vacation policy, and we want you to come refreshed and to work on it. The second thing is we involve collaboration in a lot of things. So all the decisions that we make, we're very transparent about business deals, transparent in where the company is going. And it allows all of everyone that's a part of WunderGraph to be on the same boat, and they know where the boat is going. And it allows everyone, and the best example which Jens gives is that we're all on a rowing boat. And if you know anything about rowing, if one person isn't rowing, it turns the direction of the boat even by centimeters. And if you do it by centimeters, you go in the wrong direction. So I think that's super important to talk about that. And then with the community, every day we're working to foster the community. And it's super important because our community is our roadmap. So you vote on features on Product Lane. You vote on features with Twitter. We talk with people in the community. We try to foster that community. So it's super important. And the best way that we foster it is which Scott says, everybody takes ownership. This is with the customers. This is with the users. And David and Nithin and Ilko, they're all great examples because, and actually everybody, Alberto, every single person on our team jumps on and talks to our customers, jumps on and talks to our users. And I think that fosters that communication as well as that culture within the community that not only the founders care, everybody cares at WunderGraph, which I absolutely love. Anything about that, Jens?
I add two things. So one is I will definitely take more than 30 days off per year because of my wife. Like I would work every day because I just like it. But yeah, my wife likes to take some vacation. So we do some vacation. The rest of the year I work like, I don't know, just too many hours. You need to consider I usually work from like 8 to 5. Then it's my family block. And then I have meetings from 8 to, is it noon? It's noon, right? Noon.
Yeah.
Yeah, from 8 to noon. So we have meetings with people from America. So it's very easy to actually work 10 or more hours per day. So I don't bother taking vacation. And the other thing is whenever I take vacation, I tell the whole team that this is the reminder that CEO is taking vacation, please take vacation. And the second thing is just one example. One of our employees, Ilko, he has this amazing thing called SaaS UI. This is his side project. It's his baby, where he builds UI components as a library on top of Chakra UI. It looks fantastic. And sometimes he wants to do a sprint and finish that and just make a release or something. And I just told him, you know what, if you want to make a release of your side project, just take a couple of days off, push it through, and then you come back and focus 100% on WunderGraph. Because again, I think it really doesn't matter if someone works a day or not, or what hours. It matters what they deliver. And it, like, you can deliver it next week or the week after, but if you're amazing, if you have great results, it is not so important when you're here. Like, obviously we want to collaborate, we want to communicate, so we need to be somewhat aligned, and people need to be here. But I don't know, you cannot force people to do great work. Just create an environment where they can. Don't be an asshole, and then let people flourish, and let people lose and let them kill it. You know, that's our mentality here, and I think it works great. Like, look at our change logs on Friday. We ship a fuck ton of stuff. It's amazing.
Yeah, so I accidentally put the wrong link. So sas-ui.dev, I added that. And thank you, Scott. We are very, very happy about the culture that we're building. And hopefully, you know, we just keep building, and not hopefully, actually, we're just going to keep building it like this, joining more people, and we're going to try to foster that community as we get bigger. But the next question that we have, so let's talk about WunderGraph in its earliest form and conception. This is a big topic that we get in customers. They go, oh, like, you know, it looks relatively new, but WunderGraph isn't new, right? Jens, you've actually had this idea for a while, and you worked on it for, I think, 4 years before we actually all came together and started driving this rocket ship forward. Talk to me about that.
Give me 1 second.
In the meantime, though, you guys can meet my dog. So this is Cheeky. She is a 3-pound Yorkie. My head for scale. Very tiny dog, but very ferocious. So be careful.
Okay, what was the question? Early days of WunderGraph.
The earliest form. Like, when did you come up with the idea? Where were you? How long did you work on it by yourself? Talk to me about that.
I think it's now kind of probably 5 years. I was working at T-Online, Germany's largest news website. I was, you know, in Germany, if you want to earn some money, you have to climb the ladder. So I was like a senior architect there, but that didn't pay so well. Like, it paid well, but not well enough. So I was then promoted to team lead. That paid a little bit better. The problem was I was kind of bored as a team lead because I wasn't allowed to code anymore. So what do? You start a side project. And I just learned about GraphQL, and I found it very interesting to implement GraphQL from scratch. And so I built a I built a library. It's called GraphQL GoTools, and I really started with designing an AST, implementing lexing, parsing, and then I figured out how can I build other parts to build a GraphQL gateway, like planning, execution, and all the other things. And yeah, especially the planning and execution, I had to rewrite a couple of times. And eventually, I switched jobs from being management. I worked for a company called Tyke Technologies for about 2.5 years. We built a GraphQL API gateway there, but I always felt like the team I built a whole team at Tyke with like from scratch. I met Sergey there, who's now working with us, one of the coolest guy I know from Ukraine. And so we built this whole GraphQL gateway thing. It was super cool. I went to the GraphQL conference, GraphQL Summit, before COVID. And there when I came back, I had the idea of the universal data graph, which is a single unified graph for all your things with Apollo and REST and blah, blah, blah. And we built the universal data graph at Tyke. The only thing I never liked is Tyke had a commercial product that was a dashboard. So everything had to be commercialized and sold through the dashboard. So that means the way you interacted with UDG was you had to point and click. And I always thought like, this is somewhat limited and I want to do this from scratch, and I want to allow people to write their integrations in code with TypeScript because I thought it's more powerful. It wasn't really what Tyke wanted, and at the same time, I always felt like my universal data graph was just a little island within Tyke, but it wasn't Tyke itself. So yeah, eventually we parted ways, and I started open sourcing WunderGraph. I started finding where I found one early adopter who was willing to pay support, I think $3,000 per month or something. And with that enterprise support deal, I was able to get funding and build a team. And I found Stefan and Dustin and Björn I knew from T-Online. And yeah, the rest is history.
Amazing. And the crazy thing is we're just getting started, which transitions me into my next question. So Jens, you're kind of guiding us with the roadmap. We're listening to the community, we're listening to customers, we're building our really amazing things, the open source. We're doing this full time. It's on a rocket ship. Where do you see WunderGraph in 5 years? And just in general, where do you see the API space in 5 years?
Similar to GitHub, I want to build a place where we have all APIs together, where you can publish APIs, where you can consume APIs independent of API style. I don't believe in what Apollo is doing with Supergraph. I think Federation and Supergraph is cool, but the world will not adopt it. The world will not, corporate interview question. I don't think that the whole world will speak GraphQL. We will still have legacy APIs with SOAP, and I think the dominant API style for API collaboration is REST APIs. And we want to build a platform to really bring together API producers and consumers, bring together teams, and enable collaboration flows that today are just so hard to achieve. Like, simply answering questions like, what APIs does my service depend on? What other services are using my APIs? How will a change to my SOAP, REST, GraphQL, gRPC API, how will a change to that affect other services? What can I do about it? And there's so many questions unanswered today. And I think it's just hindering the API ecosystem. And for me, what we're currently doing is really just, I would say it's kind of the starting point of the Dockerization of APIs. So the first step, and that's what we're currently doing, we're Dockerizing APIs. You can see that with the ORM, you can now talk to all your APIs through a single unified interface. The next steps will be like distributed tracing, and then visualizing how APIs or how different teams interact, what depends on what, visualizing whole companies with teams. And you can see that's what we're building with WunderGraph Hub. You can see, okay, here's our teams. Each team owns a couple services depend on each other, and you can see in real time what's happening in the system. And then you open a PR, you see a change happening, and that change, it can be reviewed by others, and they can see, okay, this change is going to affect one of our services, we need to interact. And just this level of interaction. And I think we're really just at the starting point of making the API ecosystem work the way I want it to work. And I'm just super excited for enabling that. We call it the GitHub for APIs. You can call it whatever, but I think there is so much we can do to improve the API landscape and just enable new workflows.
Love that. So that concludes our stream. We're at 10:50 my time, so we're going to have 5 more minutes for extra questions. But Jens, this Dockerization of APIs, and this is just a follow-up question that I just thought of on the spot. You tweeted something this week about startups, and I think a lot of people misunderstand startups because how can you be a serial entrepreneur by 25? And so this Dockerization or this revolution that we're doing, talk to me about startups and how people need to understand that if you're going to do a startup, this is not a 1 to 3 month deal. This is more of a 10-year plan.
I don't know what other people think, but for me, it was always that for many years I wanted to do this. I wanted to, like, my vision changed a bit because it wasn't always that big. It took me a while to fully understand what I'm doing, but I would just say I'm just super passionate about this, the API ecosystem, and I don't know. Some people might start startups because they want to start startups. I started WunderGraph as a company because I wasn't able to fulfill that vision in any other way. I actually tried to sell WunderGraph very early on, or to find a company that could make it big, but that didn't happen. I didn't want to create a company. I just wanted to do what we're currently doing, and it now happens to be a company. So I don't know. I think everybody needs to find their own way through life. For me, it's solving or doing what we're currently doing.
Amazing. And so during
Is
this
that
time,
an answer? I don't know.
Yeah, no, it's a good answer, and I can add to that. Like, yeah, startups are not get rich quick schemes. Startups are very grueling and it's hard, but it's also the most rewarding and most fun thing you can do. And to be a founder, you have to solve a problem and you have to be crazy. And Elon Musk said it, starting a company is like staring into the abyss and eating glass. And it's true, but it's also the most fun thing you can do. And so if you're not willing to do it for 10 years, I don't recommend anyone to do it. And then the second thing is we have an exciting announcement. So not next week, but 2 weeks time, we're going to have a very special guest join us on our stream. So Matthias Willems, co-founder and CEO of Netlify. And if you don't know what Netlify is, it's one of the fastest growing web development platforms. It was founded in 2014. And he is just one of the kindest people that we've met. So we have a partnership with Netlify, and he'll be joining us on the stream. So make sure that you guys, if you have any questions, to bring it for that. So that's 2 weeks time, June 2nd, same time as we do. And then this coming week, you guys can expect a lot of content. So we'll be making a video about the TypeScript ORM. We'll be making a video about the open previews. I'll be making just a funny video. I'm feeling better now. If you guys don't know, I had a huge headache for the past couple of months, but I'm all good. But other than that, we just have a lot of content coming out. Anything else from you, Jens? Any last minute things before we head off?
I wanted to add one thing to your like startup theme thing.
Oh yeah.
If you do a startup for the money reasons and money doesn't immediately come, you will be like super disappointed. If you build a startup because you really think what you're doing is right, and that's kind of like the center of your life, then you can push very long through dark tales. And trust me, for a very long time, nobody gave a fucking shit about what I was doing. Everybody told me it's stupid, or they don't need it, or they don't get it, or like, I don't know. It took forever to come to this point, and had I not had this kind of energy for what we're doing, I think I would have given up very, very early.
Awesome. And Scott has a question. So when you were starting off WunderGraph, what were the things that were keeping you from starting a company around this? What was holding you back?
Many things, like being in Germany. Like in Germany, you get taught to be an employee. The whole schooling system, everything teaches you to find a job. So it's not a natural thing to start a company. It's not easy to find money for something like, hey, we're Dockerizing APIs and we're building GitHub for APIs. If you talk to VCs and you don't have a track record, you go nowhere. You don't have, or I didn't have any connections. So I didn't know VCs. I didn't have a big network. I didn't have a following. So you can actually use Time Machine, the like Wayback Machine, and you can look at the early website of WunderGraph. You will see that it looks shit. And it also didn't get so much traffic just because I didn't have the distribution. Then founding a company in Germany is extremely complicated. If you want to found a GmbH, which is kind of the equivalent of a C Corp, it costs you at least 25K. If you have a family and kids, and you're telling your wife, I'm building a GraphQL gateway, she will be very upset that you want to take 25K to turn that into a company. I didn't know Stefan. Like I had to meet him first on co-founder match. I didn't know Dustin. I had to find him through open source. I don't know. Everything was against starting WunderGraph. Like I don't want to be like too depressing or negative, but I think the first 2 years were really absolute shit. And I don't know. Germany is not the company where you create. Germany is not the country where you create companies. Like I always feel like, if you look at Miami and the ecosystem around Stefan, like he gets invited to things, React Miami, he has these connections. Like, what is in Frankfurt? Like a Golang meetup with 10 developers who speak about garbage collection. Like, I don't know.
And I also agree, Scott. I think it's a super important part of the story. And Dax today had a tweet where he uses the phrase deserve to exist. And what I like most about Jens is WunderGraph deserved to exist. And he literally forced it into existence with the restrictions from Germany, with the restrictions from the community, with not knowing a network. And now all the people that we know and all the people that you know, I think you really emphasize of why WunderGraph deserves to exist. And I think we're all super excited on this journey. So that concludes our second AMA. Jens, thank you again so much for joining me. I know you have your family blocker in 2 minutes, so I won't bother you. And Scott, it is an underdog story. So thank you so much, guys. Thank you guys for joining in again to a weekly AMA session. We'll be back next week and then the week after with Matt from Netlify. Thanks, guys.
Ciao.